Welcome to another episode of Creative Moves, Left Career, Right Path. My name's Kabir, and today we're joined by Benjy Giddings, sound engineer at a post-production studio in central London. Previously, Benjy was in a band who toured the world and who, after releasing 2 albums under 2 different labels, parted ways. Benjy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kabir.
You're welcome. How's your day been?
Do you know what? It's been pretty mad, pretty manic, yeah. Working on loads of different projects. Actually, the engineer who's in there where I would normally be today, on the other side of the glass, Johnny, we've been writing some music for a couple of projects, so yeah, kind of keeping our sort of creative juices flowing, as you say.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if we maybe just start off with, obviously I mentioned you were in a band. Tell us a bit more about that and how that happened. Yeah,
so when I was in sixth form in Bishop Stortford. So towards the end of that, a friend of mine became a drummer in a band. They were kind of a local hero band. They were called Another Story. And so we went to all their gigs locally, to London. Absolute super fan, I'm not going to lie.
Right.
He ended up drumming for them temporarily and gave me a shout one day and was like, look, they're looking for a keyboardist. What do you think about joining? And obviously inside I was like, hell yeah. I didn't even have a keyboard. I was a piano player.
Right.
So I was like, right, what am I going to do? He's like, well, look, I've got a keyboard. Why don't you just borrow mine, come to mine an hour before practice and work out some sounds you like, play a few things, and then go from there.
What keyboard was it?
It was the Phantom X8.
Right.
An absolute beast of a keyboard, which funnily enough, I ended up buying and taking on tour with me for 5 years out of the time we were in the band.
Right.
So had it for a long time. But so we joined together and that was it. You know, we kind of all gelled straight away. And
so how old were you and how old were the other guys in the band?
So sixth form. So I must have been I was 18.
Right.
Maybe a little bit older. And they were a few years older than me. And so, yeah, we were jamming for a while. And then my mate left to go to uni. I think he regrets it a little bit. Right. He might not fully admit it. If he hears this, he might say otherwise. But we ended up getting another drummer who's amazing. He came in, Andy. And that was it. And then we formed. So it was 3 members from this Another Story, me and then Andy as the band. And that was it.
And did you change the name?
We did, yeah. It took us a while to get to the name Morning Parade, but we got there. And and we got a manager quite early on. But he was kind of advising us, not to go out touring straight away. We actually spent a lot of our time kind of honing our craft in the studio, so we'd rehearse whenever we could. So I got into an acting school, and I was, I'd say about halfway through the year of that, when our manager said, look, you've got some interest, because we'd done a couple of spot gigs, but for the majority we were rehearsing a lot.
And were they in the area that you're from, Bishop Stortford, or were they?
They were sort of London based.
Right.
So we had I think it was, if I'm right, it was like Warner maybe, but then certainly EMI, Parlophone were kind of sniffing around at that time.
Right.
And so we just kept rehearsing, did these kind of spot gigs, and when it looked like something was going to happen, my manager was like, look, you can't do your acting course and do the band. Like that's impossible.
Yeah,
you can't. Right. We're going to be touring. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff. So you have to make your decision. Will you stick with the band and drop the course, or will you, the opposite? Will you go with the course and drop the band? I was like, well, I'm in my late teens, early 20s. I was like, it's a no-brainer for me. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and something that we'd worked so hard for. It was sad to obviously wave goodbye to the acting career, knowing that that's probably that done. But no, this was worth it.
And what I'm interested to know, how it must have felt for you. So you obviously were a musician. You played the piano, and you followed this band around Another Story, and then. How quickly did you settle into being part of the band? Because almost that's sort of like a dream that you must have had at some, for yourself, and then go, well, actually now I'm in Another Story / Morning Parade. That must have felt to begin with pretty monumental, but then I guess you just accepted it.
Yeah, it was surreal. When I first met them in that kind of environment, it was two of the members. So there was Steve, the singer, and Phil, who's unfortunately no longer with us, but Phil, the bass player. And we arranged to meet in a pub. So even before the rehearsal where I borrowed my friend's keyboard, we met in this pub in my hometown, Sorberdorf. And we sat down and had a chat. They just wanted to get to know me a little bit before we even had a practice. And I was super nervous, like, sitting there, like, these are kind of like my local idols. They weren't even local idols to me. They were just like idols. I loved Steve as a lyricist, songwriter, the band as a whole. Their music was insane. And so I'm sitting there with all these like butterflies and they're like, and I didn't know how to act either. Yeah. So when they were like, okay, so, why do you want to be in this band? Are you kind of, is this your passion? And I went with I guess it was because I was young, but I kind of went with the kind of chilled back, like, don't give a fuck sort of thing. I was like, it'll be cool. It'll be something nice to get into. I don't really care. And like inside, like, I'm thinking, I want to be fucking part of this band, but no. So I gave it this whole spiel, and I think Phil, a couple of years later, said, mate, when I first met you, I thought you didn't give a flying toss about being in the band.
So, that's so funny.
Yeah. So like the reality was I was desperate to be in the band.
But they obviously liked what they saw and heard. So they were like, actually, even though you maybe come across as a bit nonchalant or arrogant or both or a mixture, they were like,
everything, yeah.
they probably, but maybe they guessed as well. Had they seen you at gigs?
Yeah, I think they knew. I mean, they would have probably seen me at quite a few of their gigs. Right, they probably recognised me. Like holding a banner. No,
better to have him on side than chasing us around.
Oh yeah, 100%. But no, as soon as we got to that first rehearsal in my mate's garage, we were rehearsing at the time, and I'd already got there early using his keyboard, and I'd found a load of sounds I liked. And so when we got together and they started jamming a few things, I just started playing along. Some of it was piano, some of it was string sounds, or maybe more synthy. And straight away, Steve just turned around and went, this is what we've needed. This is what we've been missing. And we just built from there.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
And so did you, before that, had you already written stuff, or did you start, presumably Morning Parade wrote their own tracks?
Yeah.
So did you start writing with them, or had you written stuff before, and did you bring any of that to the band? Yeah,
I did have, like, Steve definitely was our sort of main sort of outlet for things like lyrics and top line songwriting, basically. We all wrote the music around it, but he was the kind of brains behind that. But I did have some experience with it. I'd written songs. Some of them, when I look back, are fucking awful, but it's all part of the process. And so, like, I did co-write some tracks that we ended up having on our album. There was a song called Speechless that I wrote the middle eight to, and some other parts to, and there was another song. So I kind of got in there, and I think it helped when we were doing the writing process, which we did a lot of, that he had someone else there that could write songs, and everyone else was kind of capable. Everyone else in the band had a good mind on them as well.
So your managers come to you and said, right, you've got to make a decision. It's acting or the band. You go, obviously, you went with the band.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Weirdly, you would think it would be like, because we were when I made that decision, it was right towards the end of the year. So I then had to let everyone know I had a girlfriend at the time that was at that acting school as well. And so all of a sudden I just had to be like, so I was just like, right, well, that's, within a week or two, I'd made that decision, and I was like, I knew I wasn't going back. But it didn't all happen straight away as well. Once we'd decided it was going to be EMI, Parlophone, they'd put up quite a good offer. And we really liked the people from there as well. We really kind of got on with them. And so you would think then that's just going to happen all quickly, but it didn't. So I then ended up getting a job as a learning support assistant at a school for kids with special needs. Again, I needed a job, make some money, and also it was a good opportunity for a bit of life learning.
Yeah.
And then...
Where were you living at that point? Were you still in...
I was living at my mum's,
Right.
Yeah. And we were rehearsing, we'd work, and then pretty much, I'd say 5 days a week we were rehearsing and writing.
In Steve's garage?
Yeah, we moved. So we kind of kept changing. We would change from like the garage to some rehearsal studios where we had to like put up the kit and put everything up.
Yeah.
And then take it all back down again. Eventually we put money in a pot. I think even our drummer had a space. So we ended up having a permanent space where we could rehearse, not have to take everything down. Just made things a lot better. But yeah, we just kind of, our manager was like, you're not going to be playing any gigs at the moment. You're just going to sit in this rehearsal studio and write songs, keep writing. We'd find songs we thought that we loved and they're going to be definitely album worthy, and they'd be like, no, you're going to do better. And so we'd sit there, do more, and then those other songs just kind of went in the back burner. We gave some away.
And did you get sent songs, or did the label give you songs as well, or was it all?
Oh no, we wrote all of the songs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was a tough process, but it was a fun process. And you know, like, even though three of them were in a band before, this was a completely different project. So we were really building it from the ground up.
And did you get an advance from the label?
Yes.
Yeah. So that, because it's obviously, when for anybody that's myself included, never been signed to a record label, you just hear stories about you get an advance, and then you understand as you learn about it, or I think that as it's become more obvious that actually the advance is definitely got to be paid back and then some.
Oh yeah, and I think that was kind of like a little bit of our Achilles heel. It kind of shot us in the foot, actually, the way that our record deal worked. So we signed quite a hefty record deal,
right?
And also around that time, record labels were starting to do this whole 360 deal. Do you know about that, the 360?
I know what 360 is. So basically, it's not just music; it's
everything,
all media.
Yeah, and so like, you know, back in the day, it would be record sales, but then the 360 meant that they would be taking a cut out of everything, out of your sync, out of your merchandise, out of gigs, like, so any radio play and all of that stuff. Yeah. We didn't do that. Now, I think the problem with that was it was great for us if it had really, really kicked off. Like if it had gone massive, it would have been amazing for us because they would have still made money back from record sales. Because back then, you know, Spotify wasn't huge. I didn't have Spotify. I know a lot of people didn't have it. So it still was record sales just about. And but the problem was obviously it was going well, but not like, you know, it hadn't properly taken off, certainly in the UK. So they weren't making really much money. So
when you say going well, so you were selling albums and gigging, or what?
Yeah, we were getting good. So the UK was a tough one. I think we did get like a fair bit of play on like Radio 1, XFM a lot, and Absolute was playing us a lot. So we were getting a fair bit of play, but it just never really took off like we hoped it would in the UK, and as I'm sure the label hoped it would. But in places in Europe, like Holland, we had this really good sync with a HBO advert that kind of, and this amazing DJ, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but in Holland, he was the kind of one that broke that song. He found a song called Under the Stars, and a little bit like the setup here, it was filmed in his booth, and he's just going mental for one of our songs. Right. And that got a fair bit of traction on YouTube. And so that song did really well in places like Holland, Belgium, stuff like that, and then America eventually when we went over there.
And so when you were going to Europe, did you have to do, and I guess in the UK as well, were you doing promotional stuff, i.e. doing interviews?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. You do all of that. So like you'd go, you would do you'd get put on a tour. So obviously being with Parlophone, you know, they've got some big bands, like historically the Beatles, Pink Floyd, you know, there was Radiohead, of course, Coldplay, everything. So we got put on some really cool tours. We were on tours with bands like the Kooks, the Wombats, 30 Seconds to Mars, later Biffy Clyro, and Smashing Pumpkins. So we were on some big tours.
As support,
and we did do our own headline stuff as well later on. Right. So yeah, but in the meantime, sorry to go back to your question, we'd also have to be doing like, you know, interviews and doing like going to different stations, doing live performances and stuff like that for radio stations. So yeah, it was a lot.
And so would you be on tour whilst you did that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're on tour, would you be? I was wondering about this when I was thinking about having a conversation with you. Would you be in the tour van with the main act, or would you have your own tour van? Did you even have a tour van? How did that?
Yeah, we did. So it was. It depended on the funds and the size of the tour. So like when we did one of the Wombats tours, for example, and I think the Kooks, we had a bus.
Right.
So we were on a tour bus.
Your own bus?
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't share with them. I did wake up in someone's tour bus. I can't remember what band it was, but I got absolutely battered, and I somehow woke up.
Got on the wrong bus.
I don't know. I think I'd stayed out with them. I think it was.
Right.
I think it was the Wombats. I'm sure it was. And we'd got out. We'd all got, because we got on with them really well as well. And so I just woke up on their tour bus. I was like, fuck, where's the rest of the band? Yeah, and so I just woke up. I think we'd even changed cities at this point.
I was going to say, tell me it was going somewhere.
Yeah. So I'd got on their bus, fallen asleep, and then I'd woken up. I think we were in Newcastle. I was like, oh, fuck. Right. Go get outside. The other bus is there. Like, you're right, boys.
At least it was in the, so your bus, of course, would have been following it. They're like, that's fine, don't worry, Benji's over there.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't anything new to them. Like, I'd go disappearing a lot.
Right.
I was the kind of the bit of the nightmare in the band for sure, especially when we were having a drink.
So therefore you'd released your first album, you'd toured the UK, you were touring Europe.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned America. How did that when did that happen? Or
it's that happened, I would say towards the end. I'd say about halfway through our first album campaign.
And how long was the campaign?
I was quite a while, because we'd start the campaign in the UK, then the campaign would move to Europe, and then it almost starts all over again in America. So you're just doing the whole album in different cycles.
Right.
So actually, when we went to America, we almost kind of like left Europe out of it for a while, which is such a shame, because there was certain countries that could have really kept going well for us, but we just spent all our, once we were in America, that was where our focus was.
Right.
What was the question? How
long was the campaign running for? And then when you got to America, how did that sort of take off for you?
Yeah, so obviously with labels across like globally, EMI Parlophone, so our related label, our sort of sister label, if you like, over in America was Capitol Records.
Right.
And if you've seen the big Capitol buildings, pretty
yeah,
impressive.
I remember them from when I was younger. I used to collect 7-inch singles from the 60s, and I remember their logo.
Yeah, it's sick.
For like acts from the US.
It is a cool building.
Yeah.
It's really sick, yeah. We actually managed to do some recording there. We did like a little acoustic version, Steve, myself and Phil.
Wow.
I sat and played this piano, and the seat I was on was like Frank Sinatra's chair and stuff like that, or something along them lines.
That must have felt so surreal.
It was mad. Do you know what? It was one of those things. Everything was just like, it's the classic, everything happened in a blur. But like, I loved every second of it. But you have to pinch yourself that you were doing it half the time, because it just didn't feel real. I
read actually an interview with someone and they were from Aerosmith, and they said it was really hard for them to remember specific gigs.
Oh yeah,
because it all blurred, like you're saying, blurred into one. So
yeah, it is one big blur. But America was like a whole new beast. Like when we got there, we were going to do festivals. Like I know we had a South by Southwest in London, but it's nothing like that.
Did you do South by Southwest in
twice?
The States?
Yeah, we did it a couple of times, and it was insane. Like we'd have. It would be there for a few days, I think 2 or 3 days, and you would have like 4 or 5 gigs in each day,
right?
And the sweltering heat, it's like 31 degrees here today. I think some of the hottest days we had while we were there in Austin, Texas for South by was like about 34, 35, maybe more. And back then we had our skinny jeans, we always wore these like smartish shirts, and we were running so you'd have all your gear, because you couldn't drive around once you were in the sort of area where South by was. So you'd like play your gig somewhere, you'd have to set it all up, no line check or anything. You just set it up, plug in, go, play it. Then you'd have to take it all down, pack it all up, run across the whole town just to get to another venue, and then do the same again. And that would go on all day.
How big were the venues? How many people would they hold?
It varied. Sometimes I think we played like some really small ones, just like 50 cap. and then we'd get ones that are like 300, 400 caps. So, it's basically anywhere that you can play music in South by, there's music happening, even in the streets, everything. It's incredible.
It's interesting because you say you played at South by Southwest and it's like, wow, that sounds amazing. And then when you talk about the reality, it's like, we're actually taking our instruments with us, packing them up, then all of a sudden you go like, oh wow, actually that sounds like quite a lot of hard work.
It is hard work, but it's so fun as well. Like, it is mad. Like you're knackered by the end of it. You sweat enough when you're on stage, but the fact that you're turning up already dripping with sweat, that says a lot.
And so in the States, were you playing, like crossing the country, going from state to state in order to get your to get noticed by people and to sell albums? Yeah, because I remember In Excess, when before they became famous, they played previous years they played 300 gigs a year in the US, and I was like, wow, that's like 65 days they didn't play. It's amazing, because I think that the way that bands get recognition there is it's very isolated. It's like it's state by state, so it's not like we've got the BBC here. If you do Top of the Pops, the whole country sees you. They don't have that there.
No, so it's like its own little country. Each state is a country almost. You're 100% right. So like that was a big thing for us. So when we did our first single in America, this is another thing. We didn't release the same order, necessarily the same singles.
Right.
In America, we released a song called Headlights as our first single, whereas in England, we'd released a song called Under the Stars. And I think it was because it was advised that it might suit the kind of American audience a little bit more, that song, or maybe it just was the best way to start. And I think we were going to go on to that. So when we first, America was kind of where it began, and also where it kind of ended as well. Our song Headlights would go out, and like you say, we would travel. I think we did, Steve knows exactly because he's written down every gig we ever did.
Right.
But I think we went to or certainly visited 46 states. It's not bad.
In how much time?
Across, I'd say, how long were we out there in total? Probably a couple of years.
Right.
Like if you take on and off. But that's also including, we wrote our second album there.
Right.
Which I'll get to. But yeah, so the first single came out, and then we would travel around, and there were, I think, places like Philadelphia in the East. That was because they've also got different, you've got your kind of mainstream, and then you've got your alt and your rock, all these kind of stations, right? And so they've got their own charts for that. So we were going for the alt charts. And this radio station in Philly, we loved the people there. They were great. We grew a great relationship with them. They were spinning our track all the time. And they were the main station for the East.
Right.
So if you get that station, then a lot of the stations around that area kind of follow suit, because it's such a prominent station. And it's the same over in the West. There's 2 stations in LA, and there's one particularly big one, and I can't remember what it's called, but we didn't get that for Headlights. But they really liked our second single that we were going to come out with. But the other station played it a lot. I've forgotten the names, unfortunately. Sure. It's been a minute. So we got to the top 15, and it was bumbling.
Amazing.
And we were like, and then we were doing Christmas shows, we were doing all this stuff, and then
on TV or on radio?
The Christmas shows?
Yeah,
they were live.
Oh, live shows.
In America, they do these amazing these Christmas shows where all the radio stations host these massive gigs,
right? And
bands that they've been kind of put on their playlist that they would get them to play.
When you say massive gigs, like in stadium or?
No, like just a nice big venue. The best one is unfortunately the bit where it all kind of went wrong as well, because we'd been doing these Christmas shows, and we'd come out, the Headlights was kind of done, we'd done that single, and then we knew that the next single, Under the Stars, which had been a hit in Holland and stuff like that, was going to be our next one. And we knew that the radio station that wasn't playing us in the West, in LA, really liked that song. So as far as we were aware, this could be easily a top 5, if not higher, in the alt charts. And so we're all buzzing. We played this gig in Chicago, one of the Christmas ones, even to the point where they knew our song really well. They were playing our single there quite heavily, and so they were holding up lighters and everything, all their phones up for the song. So we came off the stage, and we were like, "This is the fucking best gig ever." And one of the heads of the label Capital was at the gig, and he just turned around and went, "Guys, I'm really sorry, but as of this moment, we can't work with you anymore. It's done." And we were like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And basically, what had happened is Universal had got EMI had got bought by Universal. They sold Parlophone to Warner.
Yeah.
So because we were Parlophone EMI, we then went to Warner, but then the rest of the labels went to Universal, or most of them went to Universal,
Right.
including Capitol. So in America, we were no longer on the same label as them. That was it. And so we had to stop. That was the whole album campaign for our first album had to stop.
That must have been hideous. Like, I can't even imagine.
It was an absolute sucker punch, because we were like, we had the best relationship. Like, we loved everyone from Capitol Records that we met. Like, they loved us. They respected us. They worked hard. Like the radio pluggers, everyone we met, just anyone we met from the label, I don't think we had a bad thing to say about any of them.
It must have been a very intense relationship as well, because I mean, you just mentioned that you toured 46 states, so you were away from home for a long time. The record label must be your anchor. Do you know what I mean? So like, for them to say, right, it stops here, does it stop immediately there, or do they fly you home, or what? How did that all happen?
Do you know what, that whole little section, I honestly, I think that was actually, weirdly, because it was the Christmas shows, I wouldn't even be surprised if that was one of our last Christmas shows and then we went home anyway. I can't really remember.
Right.
But regardless, as of that point, that was the end of like our relationship with Capitol.
And so was that also Parlophone, your end of your relationship with?
Well, it didn't have to be. That wasn't our relationship with Parlophone. When we started, it was amazing. It was that whole excitement. They thought that we were kind of this next big band that they'd signed. And we really liked them as well. As people, I've got a lot of love for them. But unfortunately, in the UK, it didn't work out as they kind of hoped. And so the kind of relationship kind of broke up a little bit, and it wasn't as kind of, we weren't this band that, they thought was going to do big things. We were this band that was probably costing them a fair bit of money. So we made an agreement with them. So we came back and we said, look, we know we owe you a lot of money, and there's no way we're going to be able to pay that back. But do you cut your losses, and can you just let us go and we go our separate ways? And they could have said no. They could have shelved us and made our lives absolutely miserable. I'm pretty sure they could have done that.
Meaning that they weren't going to do anything with you, but they wouldn't allow you to sign with someone else, another label.
Exactly. They would be like, no, we're just going to hold on to you, and that's it. Which, it does happen. We've met bands on tour where, they get so excited they've signed a deal and nothing happens, and you're like, well, just leave. And they're like, well,
we can't.
We've signed this, or we've got this album, and that, they own the rights to it, or whatever it is. There was this whole talk of how bands get shelved, and that's definitely a thing, massively so. So they, in fairness, they did us a solid one. Once we parted ways, it took us a little while, but then we found another label, independent label called So Recordings, who were interested in, certainly what our manager was telling them, because he met them before we did. And once they'd kind of come in and so basically, once we parted ways with Parlophone, obviously that album was done because we couldn't do anything with it legally. It's done. So even though we'd only got halfway through, not even halfway through in America, we'd only done one single, but we had to redo a whole new album. So we basically came back to Harlow, and by this point got another studio, a different studio space. It was like a warehouse that we turned into a studio, and that's it. We just had to write a whole new album.
Was it you? So you rented the warehouse, or? Yeah,
rented a space, and then and our bass player, amongst others, kind of built the studio with inside it, and it was great because then we had again, constant access. We actually signed another deal pretty quickly with So Recordings, and so we basically, our full-time jobs actually was being in the band, like it had been ever since we'd recorded, signed the deal with EMI.
Yeah.
So we were there pretty much every day, and then even on weekends we'd go and rehearse. It was a lot, but we managed to do it. You know, like Steve's quite a driven guy,
right?
So he was kind of, whenever we kind of wouldn't feel up to it, he'd be like, right, we've got to fucking do it. It's our jobs. We've got to make it work. And we'd all be like, yeah, fair enough.
So did you have a deadline to work towards to release the album, to complete the album? Or
I think we had dates in our mind. I can't really remember the specifics, but yeah, we certainly were like, right, we need to this is our goal. We want to get it done. And also bear in mind, we didn't want to lose too much traction. And be that band that would get forgotten about in a place like America. So we're like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. So we did it. It was a very different album to our first one. It was a little bit more aggy and angsty, and I think it was a bit of an angry album.
Right.
A bit of a fuck you to how we felt everything had worked out for us. But yeah, we did it. So we wrote it, and then we were like, right, we signed to So Recordings, but we did manage to we signed in America with the sister label of Capitol, which is or was called Caroline, and that meant that we could work with our radio pluggers that we had while we were in the States. So we were like, oh, amazing. So like, okay, we can work with them. So that's great. So we got that sorted. We ended up recording our second album in Atlanta, which was quite different. Yeah, in the streets of Atlanta. No, it was a very different experience.
So much history for music there, though.
Yeah, it was mad. It was a mad. I think it was a few months we were living there and recording. So that was.
How did that feel to be back in the States and doing something really positive?
Oh, it was exciting, and we thought, like we're doing something a bit different to what we were doing from album one. We were excited about it, and we felt with a few of the tracks, we were like, yeah, these are good tracks.
Right.
So we were quite kind of hopeful. And also, it was fun,
Sure. And so what happened when you released that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we got things like Apple put us on their single of the week. So that was a free download for one of our tracks from the album. And that got a lot of downloads. Again, didn't get the traction we wanted. And then the problem was, so even with radio stations like Philly, which was really playing our first single, by the time we'd gone home, found a new label, written a new album, gone out and recorded it, and then got it to the radio pluggers to get it out there. After all that, like we did it fast, but it wasn't fast enough. And I think, by that point they already had new bands on their roster. They couldn't fit us in. And that was it. We just couldn't get back on. And that was all that momentum gone. So Recordings really wanted us to keep pushing. We filmed a couple more music videos and had one lined up that, a song that definitely probably could have done pretty well. It was a song called Reality Dreams. We just, by that point, they hadn't any more budget for us. Right. So we would have had to actually start, getting jobs again. But then to do that and do the band full time, and our bass player had a kid not that long before, it just was all too much. And I think for Phil, for everyone, even though I denied it, I think everyone was just a bit done.
Sure.
Just like, this is like killing us. We've done all of this stuff and then we're feeling it will go away. It took the enjoyment, I think, out of writing music, which is what we did it for.
I know it sounds like even towards the end of the first deal and then the second one, it sounds really intense as well and all-consuming. Yeah. And actually, you probably were just burnt out, maybe.
I think we were. I think we partied hard and we worked hard. I think the biggest venues that we played on tour were when we were with the Smashing Pumpkins, because they were doing a stadium tours.
Right.
Like the Brooklyn Bowl, I think.
Right. How was that?
Oh, it was amazing. The best gig we ever had was we did. So basically, this is kind of what got us to America, and our manager was very, very clever about marketing it as a big thing for us. But we ended up following when the Olympics was in London or the UK.
Yeah.
We would, as a band, we followed the torch and played in loads of different cities.
Oh wow.
Yeah, following the torch, and then we finished at Hyde Park. It was like the big one.
Wow.
And that was to like 80,000 people. It was
Amazing.
like so we played on this stage. It wasn't quite 80,000 people when we started because we were the first band on, but by the time it finished, it was pretty close to that. And it was,
amazing.
This sea of people, a lot of which didn't even know who the hell we were.
Yeah.
Like they were like, who's this fucking band up there?
It must have been an incredible feeling playing to that number of people.
Yeah, and the response, a lot of them didn't know who we were, but a lot of them enjoyed the music, it seemed. So yeah, it was pretty amazing experience.
And what about TV stuff that you did? What sort of anything stands out in your memory of some show that you go like, I can't believe we did that? Or
we did. We went on the Jay Leno show.
Wow.
In LA. That was mad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was that in the first tour, with the first label, or with the second?
That was with the first. Yeah.
Right.
So that was when Headlights was our first single over there, and so we did the Jay Leno show. It wasn't actually that long before he then retired from that.
So how was that? I mean, that must have been like when that happened. That must be like, is this happening?
Yeah, it's surreal. It's absolutely surreal. I mean, there's a photo of us as a band sat outside on this bench outside the studios. And I look back on that. I'm like,
I thought you were saying in the green room.
Oh yeah, no, we've got a photo with him somewhere. I've got to find it. There's a photo where he came into our dressing room. I think after everything, and was like, really nice to meet you guys. Great performance.
Wow.
And, really nice guy actually.
So I find that's really fascinating to go. Well, that's almost like what could be, and then clearly. You said, you with your second deal, you just realised that you had to call it a day. What did you do at that point? It was
a hard decision, I think, for everyone. We knew way before we announced it because we had a good fan base and a very solid fan base. There's some that would follow us around wherever we went. But we knew, so we booked a last hurrah tour, and it was our headline tour. For the second album.
Yeah.
We knew that when we got back to London and played at the Hoxton that it would be our last gig. So we just kept it quiet, and then I think we announced it just a few days before, maybe even on the last day. I'm not sure. Or maybe even after the tour. It really is a bit of a blur. But yeah, so I felt bad for So Recordings because they put a lot of money into it. They're an independent, lovely bunch of people, put a lot of faith into us, and then I feel like maybe we let them down a little bit. But we just couldn't keep going. I wanted to. I definitely felt I wanted to, but I think realistically we couldn't have. So when we decided to put it to bed, it was an emotional tour. We were counting down the gigs. We'd play, and it was a European tour, so we'd play. Blah blah blah. We play Germany and Belgium and Holland. Obviously, we did 2 gigs because it had been so good for us. And then finished back in London. And then when we came off stage, we all kind of just cried our eyes out.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And what did you do next? Did you take some time out, or did you go straight into another job?
I didn't have a fucking clue what to do. I really had no idea. I did the classic, went to Thailand, did a month there. Then a neighbour of mine was like, look, we need some, he works for a construction company. He was like, why don't you come work for us for a little bit? So I was like, yeah, I'll do a few weeks, few months, and ended up being a few years,
Right.
Just because I just wasn't inspired at all. Like after the band ended, it was all I'd known in kind of like a professional sense.
How long was that period from when you joined when you were 18 to when you stopped?
I think from when I joined the band to when it stopped, it was like just shy of 8 years.
Right. So that's virtually all your adult life.
Yeah, and for a massive part of that was all we did all the time.
Yeah,
and they were the only people I saw most of the time on tour. Yeah. That was just us in a little bubble. We had our own sense of humour. Our own jokes, we had our own way of living, constantly moving. So all of that went, and I was just like, I have no fucking clue what my life is about anymore. I'd given up acting, didn't know how I was going to get back into that.
Right.
So I didn't bother.
And were you still writing music then when you were working as a labourer? Did you just stop music completely for a while?
I did actually try. So when we stopped, I I think that maybe a few months went by, and then I picked up, the piano a little bit again, started, and then I'd stop again, I just lost a lot of confidence. I think everyone in the band did. We kind of felt we'd had our fingers burnt a little bit.
When did you start thinking about what you were going to do next?
It took a while, I kind of, it messed with my head a lot because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of, I didn't know what I was good at other than being in the band. I kind of, that's all I knew.
I guess that was your identity as well,
It
right?
was everything. So my dad, for example, would be like, what are you going to do? You can't just be, labouring right now. You've got to be doing something, working towards something. I was like, Dad, I have no fucking idea what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I literally, it was like my whole mind was one big cloud. So eventually I knew I was stuck in a rut, and I was like, well, I need to go and do something very different. And I met this, I was actually through a family friend that someone said, there's a guy who does this volunteering project in Nepal. Why don't you have a chat with him? And so I had a chat with him, and I told him, what I've been doing for the last few years and what I had been doing before that. And obviously with a bit of construction that I'd learned, not a lot, because I was mainly a labourer, but I'd learnt a bit, and also I could be there to help him with whatever he needed. And so we kind of struck that off, and I went into Nepal and did some volunteering with him for a while, which was cool.
And what volunteering doing what?
So one of them was like restoring or rebuilding a new school, because their school had got demolished.
Right.
And then the other was, which was quite an incredible project actually, was this water project where there was a village at the top of this kind of hill that had no access to drinking water. So the villagers the women would go half an hour trekking down this sort of mountainside to go to the nearest water source, and then they would collect it and then walk all the way back up.
Wow.
And what Justin had put in place, and which I then ended up getting involved in with the project, was this, they got a tank built there and a tank built at the village. So at the water source and at the village, and then these pipes going up. And then our job was to install these solar panels, and we had this pump. And so we all connected it all up, got it all sorted. And then basically the pump would then pump all the water from this tank that was being collected around the water source all the way up to the village. But classic, so many things went wrong. It nearly didn't work. Like, there was, apparently when the pipes had been laid before I'd got there, there'd been like trucks go through and they'd ripped through all the pipes. So we had to dig up all these pipes and glue, like burn them together, basically. Oh yeah. We'd had like the locals. It was just me, Justin, and then local people.
Right.
He gave work to the locals, which is great. And they were all lovely, but they were all running around going, leak, leak, leak. It was basically one of the only words I think a lot of them knew, was the word leak by the end of it. But yeah, so we were running around and managed to do that. So, and when it finished, the whole village threw us this massive party. Like, it was unforgettable.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a beautiful moment to be part of.
And so what did you do after that? Then you came back to the UK?
Yeah, I went back, and then I went back out for a very different volunteering project in Cambodia. I'd kind of got the bug by then, but this one was with VSO, and that was, I was team leading a group of volunteers in a project in a community. That was a very different experience. It was an amazing experience, very different. Less hands-on, more kind of just, working with local volunteers and UK volunteers. So it was kind of mixing, integrating, and it's sustainable change for developing countries.
Right.
So, you integrate into the societies there, and you kind of try and work with the schools that are there. And we worked with like the local authorities.
Right.
Yeah. And using like the knowledge that the local volunteers have, and using, so it's kind of, it's much more about development and understanding and learning. It was very different. It's not like a big impact project where you're going to change something. You're not going to go there and build something.
And so then you finished that, and what did you do next? How did you get into sound engineering?
I had a little dab in, there was an immersive theatre show in West London, Notting Hill, that I ended up doing the sound on. It was like this Mad Hatter's gin and tea party. So I was doing the sound there, and then they needed an actor eventually, so I did a bit of acting there, which was quite fun.
How did you find that after however many years it was that you'd been doing acting?
It was a different type of acting. It was very kind of like a bit more jokey and loud and brash. Right. But it was good. It was good fun. Like, I enjoyed both parts of that, doing the sound and doing the acting there. Part of it, I was dressed up as the Queen of Hearts at one point.
Right.
It was like Northern Queen of Hearts.
And so how did you get the job as doing the sound?
Actually, through a family friend.
Right.
So the company that were running it, called Kit and Caboodle, it's a family friend of ours, and they said they were looking for someone to do the sound. So I was like, yeah, sorry, I'll do it. Right. Sort of learnt on the job a little bit. Very different to the sort of sound I do now.
Sure.
Yeah.
And is that what led you to sound engineering in post-production, or how did that?
Yeah. No, kind of not really, I guess. Like, funnily enough, with the sound engineering kind of came a little bit later. So like the next sort of thing that happened was, of course, then COVID happened, right?
Right.
So we were doing that show and then it had to end. And then, so it was at that point that in the sort of height of the COVID pandemic or whatever, I was kind of like wondering, what is it I want to do? And, my mum had been like, look, you love music, you should get back into music. I was like, no, I'm done with music, fucking hate it, blah, blah, blah. It's never going to happen again. And she was like, well, why don't you look at it in a different way? And she was like, I've seen these courses where you can do music for film and games. Would you consider that? I said, well, that's something I haven't considered. And so I looked into the course. It was in Hertfordshire University, and it was a course called Music and Sound for Film and Games.
Right.
And I applied. I hadn't done a BA, which they normally you normally have to have done one. But I explained my situation, and I sent them a load of music that I'd written, because I had written music. And when you asked me if I'd written any, I had written some music, but just nothing I was confident enough to put out.
Sure.
In fact, I haven't really put any of my own stuff out. I'm still holding on to a lot of it. But yeah, so applied and had a chat with one of the guys there, and he was like, yeah, look, if you're interested, come along. So I did. So
amazing.
The COVID had kind of chilled out by that point, taken a little rest. So I went there, and I had 2 or 3 lessons, and then we went back into COVID. So it was all done at home in the end. But I was very fortunate. I had my own sort of studio set up.
And that was for how long?
It was a year.
So when you finished that, what was your plan to work in film and music for film and games, or what? Did you know what you wanted to do, or did you just go, right, now I've got this qualification, I need to think about how to move in that world?
Yeah, I think once I knew, obviously it was nice to know that I had a qualification, I got a distinction, it was all okay, this is going to be this is going to open some doors. Yeah. But then actually the reality of it is you leave, or you don't leave because we were never really there, but
you go into the kitchen.
Yeah, leave the lounge. No, so it finishes and you get this, master's degree, and actually you're just you got to go and start all over again and find a job.
Right.
So, but certainly I had a bit more confidence about me that I didn't have before doing that year. I'd learned a fair bit, which is a lot of it you have to kind of learn yourself, especially when you're trying to do stuff on Zoom calls.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a little bit more confidence in me, and luckily, funnily enough, one of my sister's ex-boyfriends or ex-fiance knew someone who worked here.
Oh wow, okay.
He used to work with him, and gave him a shout for us. And so I opened this conversation with someone working here, and that was kind of the next step.
So that was
2021, I think, maybe 2020, 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a weird one for how I've got to becoming a sound engineer, because when I got in touch with this guy Chris who worked here, and he was saying, look, we're looking for some music for a project. So I sent over some music, never met the guy, and he was like, oh, the client, like what they've heard, come and meet us. So I went and met him, and naturally he showed me around the studios here, and I was like, oh, this is a cool place. I like it here. It's nice. And I said, look, while this is going on, this music thing that I've sent you, I thought I might as well ask, is there a job going? He was like, funnily enough, I think there's a place up in Transfer.
Right. Which is just transfer is
basically where you'll receive files for a session, like picture, video, and OMFs, which are basically folders that contain all of the audio that you might need for a project and all this sort of stuff. And then you have to organize it and put them into other folders and basically send them out to the right people.
Okay, so so it's a really good introduction into a post-production studio.
Yeah, it is.
So that's what you started doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess presumably you progressed into
so I'd basically
becoming a sound engineer.
I'd be in any spare time that I got, I'd just be like kind of on Pro Tools trying to learn a few of the tricks. I'd be constantly sitting in sessions with some of the more senior engineers here. I'd come in and look what they're doing and pick up a few tricks, ask them about shortcuts, because in this line of work it's quite a lot about speed.
Right.
So I was learning a lot of the shortcuts, a lot of stuff that I kind of hadn't bothered to learn when I was doing music, because I was never in a rush, in that sense. So learned a lot of that, pushed for it. I was like, look, put me on some jobs. Ended up going on a few sort of easier jobs.
And are you doing anything with music now? Because obviously it's now, between now when you left Morning Parade and now, it's quite a big amount of time.
I've very much got back into the world of music. In the last sort of year or so, I got involved in projects. There's another guy who works here, and we wrote a few tracks, one for Nike Cortez, another ski brand. And then later on, I started taking on a few more myself. And it's been busy. It's been exciting. A real mixture of things as well. Some are much more sort of funky style music, and then you've got the cinematic style music. That's what I really like about this line of work. What that kind of love for music that I had, that I felt had gone. Yeah. Like, when you, whether it's, even writing with someone or if writing for yourself, ever since the band, I don't think I've quite had that until recently. It's taken a long time. Yeah. It's taken I
can imagine. I would imagine it's almost like PTSD to some extent. Actually, this is a question I maybe should have asked you before, but when the band finished, what was your relationship with music like? Did you stop listening to music? Were you able to enjoy music? Or, how did you feel about music generally?
Yeah, I had a thought about this not that long ago. So I never stopped loving music. I think it's like anyone, if you like music, if you love music, you love it. Yeah, exactly. I know how much you love music, for example, Kabir, but so I never stopped loving music. I never stopped listening to it. It was it was definitely the thing that got me through some dark days, in between the band and now. So yeah, music definitely helped. It was like therapy, really. Whenever I felt like that kind of dark cloud, it kind of pushed me through. The one thing I didn't do though, which is stupid, and I still haven't got back to how much I used to go. I stopped going to gigs a lot.
Right.
I've been to a few, but I used to go all the time. So I've kind of trying to make a bit more effort, I think. To
maybe that will come back with, now you're doing writing again as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I am starting to get a bit hungry to see some more bands play live. I've missed that kind of watching live music.
And obviously you said sadly one of your band members passed away, but are you in contact with the other people you were in the band still? Are you? Yeah,
not so much. We are in touch, and obviously when Phil passed away, which was tragic, no one saw it coming. But when he passed away, it did kind of bring us together again. Phil was kind of like the glue in the band. He was the kind of the go-to guy for anything. He was your best mate, and he was everything. So I kind of felt oh, okay, there's a chance here for us to kind of reconnect. And after the band, we didn't all, I actually lived with Phil for a little while. We'd see Andy, Steve as well, but Steve actually, the singer, moved to the States permanently. Right. He's been doing some great stuff over there
in music.
Yeah, I think he went into more kind of managing roles and a few different roles. But he's been doing really well there, and at least he's following a passion in that kind of respect over there. We haven't been in touch anywhere near as much as I would probably like, and part of that is my fault. Part of that is just the way things go. You lose touch a little bit, and life kind of gets in the way.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you two questions now that we ask everyone. The first one is, what's a decision you would have made differently if you could go back in time and change the outcome?
My honest thought is that I wish I'd got to something like post-production or music a little bit sooner. I loved doing the volunteering work, but there was time before and after that, since the band, that I feel like I could have used that time a little bit more wisely, but I just wasn't in the right place. So it's a funny one, isn't it? Like, I wasn't ready, but looking back now, I wish I was, because I'd rather have been doing this a few years earlier.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those questions that is easier to answer with hindsight than necessarily how you would have made the decision at the time. So that's a good answer. Thanks for that. And moving on to the second question, tell us about a sliding doors moment in your career that had a profound impact.
Yeah, I think there is one massive sliding doors moment, and it's one I think about a lot. Do I ever imagine my life, what it would have been like if I'd have finished my acting course rather than lived a life with the band? Because, would I have been successful as an actor or would I not? You have those questions that run through your head. What would my life have been like, and how different?
Yeah, obviously it had a massive impact on your life. Which leads me to the next question, which feels natural to ask. Do you think acting's anything that you would ever go back to? And do you ever think about that?
I do think I'd love to get involved in a little bit of it again. I sort of tell myself, I've missed the boat on that. But like, even if I did it for enjoyment or something, like got involved in like some dram theatre production or something, it would be nice to do it again.
So watch this space.
I've watched this space, yeah.
I just want to say thank you for coming and talking to me about your story. I think it's a big roller coaster of, experience that's happened to you, but it's great to hear that, you're in a happy place now and you're enjoying what you're doing. And I think that it's, in terms of, what this podcast is about, it literally is about dealing with change and transition and making a way through that. And I think it's, you should be really proud of yourself.
Oh, thank you, Kabir. Do you know what? I was pretty nervous coming to do this because I've never really spoken depth about the band. And actually, it's one of those weird things, you start talking about it and you feel like there's so much I could talk about. Like with the band, I feel like I could talk for hours and I wouldn't cover half of there's so many funny stories and stuff. But no, it's been actually really beautiful to share it. So thanks for giving me that opportunity, really.
You've been listening to Creative Moves, Left Career, Right Path, a Cabbage and Bubble TV co-production. Host, Kabir Malik. Producers, Pauline Russell and Kabir Malik. Special thanks to Benjy Giddings. Follow us on Instagram at Creative Moves. Subscribe to Creative Moves on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, or wherever you get your podcasts.